Your team, I guess, but how do you maintain a positive atmosphere in a business?
I think you've got to be quite a good actor, in that if you've had a real bad evening at home, or you've got some really bad client information about your company or whatever, you can't give that out to all the staff. They've got to actually believe that everything is good all the time, really. So for me, it's remaining a real positive demeanor. I think it's having an open door policy, and knowing your staff, knowing them by name. I mean, I've run companies with hundreds of staff, and it's actually knowing who each individual is, what they do in the business, being able to go up to them, talk about what they do, giving pats on the back where necessary, praising people, etc. And just not being everybody's mate, but actually being somebody that they can actually approach if need be, and really, accentuate on the positive, I guess. Constantly let people know how good things are and how things are moving along.
Is that tougher to do when offices are remote, like they are for many now?
Well, I mean, at Fusion, thinking about it, we had probably 12 offices that I used to visit pretty regularly. So again, that comes back to my planning for the months. I would make sure that I visited all the offices during the month, be it one day or whatever. I suppose in this day and age with Zoom, what I've seen over the last year, yes, the good clients have kept in touch with their staff through Zoom. We're either one-to-one or at the end of the week, quite often having a get-together where they have a drink on Zoom and again shout about the positives of that week. So you can still do it, but obviously it's much better when the offices are back in and you're all in together.
I can go back to running my team of 11, and actually I've just recorded a webinar this morning with Claire Davis on team leading and team leading from a distance and motivation, intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, all that good stuff, and actually keeping it fun. That's how I maintain a positive. If I can see that it's going south, that something's happening, then either we just stop and we do something stupid for 5 minutes and everyone picks up, or we have those type of activities planned in that people can actually just let off a bit of steam and make the environment fun. And then it's going to be a positive atmosphere. If they're enjoying it, and they should enjoy agreement, it's a great job, then you've got to add those fun elements into it. So that's coming out next week. That will be next Thursday, that daily workout. Actually, you'll be able to get it from Monday afternoon if you're in the gym, for people to be able to do that. We came up with 10 things to do on a Zoom and meetings to make it fun. What about you?
Well, I want to touch on something you said then, which I totally agree with you about that. But one of the things I think can be the problem is not noticing when things are going south. So you must not take your eye off the ball. So I think that it's that thing about a frog in hot water, and slowly it heats up, and next thing you know, you've got a dead frog. So that's a real thing, by the way. I haven't just made that up.
At some point, that's what I had a vision in my head.
Don't know what happens, but that's what your culture can be like, is that unless you recognize what's happening, unless you can keep taking that step back, then you are going to miss the signs when you should have spotted them. So spotting it earlier is just much easier. And then, yes, just kind of doing a bit of a reset. And often the way to do that is by something fun. So totally agree with that.
And on that same webinar, actually, we started off with micro expressions and being able to read people. So exactly what you said there, being able to spot the signs before it gets there. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it can always be positive. I mean, if you take the last year, I don't think any director of a business could say, I kept my firm completely positive every single day. But I think what you do need is you need a bit of authenticity, and you need to be honest. You need to have a vision and a plan, and you need to be constantly sharing that with people, because people are motivated because they understand what's happening. They understand what's in it for them. Yeah. They're not fearful. You know, a lot of my coaching with one-to-one consultants is that they're just a little bit terrified. You know, the communication between the management and the staff isn't always great. They see people going into offices, they see eyebrows raised and faces, and they worry about themselves. You know, and I think it's really important that to keep that motivation high, it's open, it's honest. And if you're having a tough time, you know, we are on the rocks. Things are not going our way, but I believe in you all. We can all stick together. We can all pull forward from this. All I need from you is, now that's a negative message, but there's a motivation in there, like, help me, help the business, let's stick together, let's be a team. And I think that's how I used to motivate my team.
Tricky right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all had a crash course on this over the past year, right? I think for me, is I've got a few tips, and I've got a little step-by-step for you. Self-care, first and foremost. It's all got to start from you. You can't pour from an empty cup, basically. So first one is get enough sleep. Really tricky to do, really easy to get into bad habits as well, with a kind of work life blurring into home life, and as never actually stepping away from our computers and so on. Number 2 is exercise, ideally outside to get in fresh air. Get out in nature. That's my number 1 tip and number 1 answer for everything at the moment, basically. And stay connected. I think that's the biggest problem I've seen during this particular lockdown, is that people are really struggling and feeling disconnected and just zoomed out, basically. So it's more important than ever to actually stay connected and reach out and try, go for walks and all that stuff. And do something every day that just makes you feel joyful and lovely. Again, it's the self-care that's the first to go, isn't it, when we're busy and got so much on our plate? But you can't do everything. You can't show up as you would want to show up if you're feeling fragmented yourself.
Yeah.
And then routine as well. So as I alluded to before, I've got a strict three daily non-negotiable morning routine that if I don't do it, I notice immediately. My husband says, "Go and do that because you're being ridiculous." But if I do it, it sets me up for the best day, which is journaling, 3 pages of my journal before I even get out of bed. It's yoga and meditation. And if I do those, I've got a fighting chance of being productive and having a good day. And then so you're looking after yourself first. That's step 1. Step 2 is communication. So nothing breeds fear and negativity in an organisation like lack of communication from the top, or whispering, whether it's sidebar conversations on Zoom or whatever it is. So keep that flow of information going, and multi-channel, so not just on a screen, and formal and informal as well. So just little text, chatting, all that stuff. And if you are the leader, this is number 3, role model that positivity. So have a plan, share it, and take inspired action every day so people can see you. It breeds that confidence. But also number 4, acknowledge the challenge and don't be tone deaf. There's nothing worse than seeing a lady going, it's fine, we're all fine, when you see everything falling apart around you. And then the last one, number 5, is manage your belief system. So be hyper aware of that little voice in the back of your head. You may be thinking you're doing all the good stuff, but there's a little voice in the back of your head saying there's no point, you're not going to get any clients in this environment, you can't make any money, you're in trouble, you're going to have to make staff redundant, all that stuff. As a leader, it's your responsibility to manage that voice. And I know it is not easy, because I spend most of my time either helping clients with that or working on my own. But if you need support for it, go and get it. But be aware of what stories you're telling yourself and what you're making that mean. I hope all that makes sense.
It does. And what's really interesting about that is that I've spoken to some people who've given quite a flippant answers to this question. And I think I gave a very flippant answer to this question. But it is actually really hard work. You've got to have a proper strategy for all these things. And you've got to build time into your day to make sure you're actioning it, haven't you?
I think as recruiters, we're really crap at doing this inner work, and we just kind of push and do all the things. And if I just spend an extra hour on LinkedIn, I'll just find that gem, or I'll hit upon the perfect strategy. If I just do this shiny magpie entrepreneur syndrome, if I just go and do this, everything will be great. And actually, it's self-mastery first, and then everything else becomes easy.
And be understanding of others. Exactly the same. I always think, again, when it comes to performance management, I would talk about it in a positive way rather than the negative connotation sometimes associated with that phrase. Then you look at it in the context of, particularly as we had done the last year, and we'll talk about mental health and the pandemic, but I had some absolute horrors having to see secondhand, firsthand, in different parts of the world, different organisations, different people, where they've really struggled because of the situation that they're in. And that understanding has to, I think, just apply in a normal environment where we haven't got a COVID situation, because people aren't always firing on all cylinders and trying to, and it all comes down to engagement of staff engagement in its full definition, which is really understanding the individuals, their motivations, what they're looking to do, and how they are feeling in the context of what the objectives are of the organisation, and aligning everything, those two things together. And pulse tests on morale and all those things are really important to try and get some sense of view as to how people are.
Well, look, this is an easy one for me now because I predominantly work from home. I work with my husband. I've got 2 massive idiotic dogs and a cat that thinks she's a dog, and I live in the country. So but when I think about environments that I've worked in before and businesses that I've, led, and teams that I've led and stuff like that, for me, it's laughter. You've got to be able to have fun. And I don't mean the old school 90s banter when you kind of stomp around and you take the out of each other. I mean laughter. Some of the best memories that I have about working in bigger businesses and being part of a team was the whole that sort of camaraderie, that team spirit that we had. And that might involve dancing on a desk at 3:00 on a Friday afternoon. But the whole point is that supportive environment, being supportive, being open, being honest. And also, I think having, you could ask this a different way. How do you avoid a really negative environment? Lots of closed doors, people being called into meetings, that kind of stuff. That's just not knowing where you stand. So for me, openness, laughter, love, a bit of music occasionally, allow people to come out themselves, embrace themselves as who they are and what they do. And I would say I'm very fortunate. Like I say, my husband and I laugh a lot. We work in completely different industries, but we laugh a lot when we work together. It's good.
Well, I'm one of those really strange people who wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and are happy to get up and start work at that time. So I'm always a glass half full. Okay, so that's the first thing. I've always been like that forever. That's just who I am. Secondly, like you, I believe that things happen for a reason. And now after everything, I have to find the positive outcome from that. So I go looking for it. So if something hasn't gone right, but then we look at what opportunity we've missed, what the learning could have been, and how we could evolve that process or decision making or whatever it is that it's become a negative. I hadn't realised that during the initial lockdown, I'd been keeping in touch with my team. I've been telling them what I was up to. They were all furloughed, telling them what I was working on, what products and services I was reviewing. And I hadn't realised how that impacted them on the trust that they had in me. To continue the business and to get out of the situation that everybody was in, or most recruitment agencies were in anyway. And Jackie, one of my consultants, posted on LinkedIn on International Women's Day that I was her inspiration. And I have to say, it did move me quite a lot. I'm glad I hadn't had a gin when I read it. But it did move me, because what she was saying was, even through all of that, you kept it positive. At no point did we ever feel that we was at risk of anything, that it wasn't going to work, that you wasn't going to work through this and get us out of it. So I suppose that for me that was my motivation, that, we do things right.
So you don't even have to maintain it. It's just natural you. And therefore, even when everything's down, you're, okay, what can we do? Where's the positive?
Yeah.
And that is a real recruiter as well, isn't it? We're solutions based. We're always looking for the way out of how things can be fixed.
Yes.
And that's what we do. So I can see some real critical attributes that you have in you that are really important to any recruiter that's listening, that is thinking about this. Yeah, definitely.
No, it's so important in business. You're with these people sort of 9-10 hours a day sometimes. It's so important that you have a positive positive atmosphere. And I've got to be honest, I'll be honest, my team were an extension of my family. I cared about them deeply. And in return, I know that they cared about the job they were doing, about, you know, being productive and everything like that. And keeping them involved in decision making, it keeps everything positive, and they are really sort of, you know, channeled in positive and everything like that. But of course, we did standard things like the team building exercises, like we used to do the dragon boat race at Moat Park every year. We did charity events. We were always putting ourselves in for business awards, because it could be for an individual or it could be for the whole team, but it kept everybody motivated and positive about what they were doing. Another thing, and I know you're going to love this probably with what you do, but I mean, it's true, training keeps people positive online. They know what they're doing. And every quarter we would do training sessions for the team, and that would be external people coming in. It could be on legislation, it could be something we've done before, it could be more sort of, they want to do more sales skills or anything, but we try to do that quarterly. But I go back to my roots again here, and we used to do quarterly business reviews with the team. So therefore, you get to do it on a one-to-one with them. They get to tell you about, and people want to talk about themselves. They want to say what they've done and what they've achieved. And it's time to give praise. You know, it's time to give them praise as well. And then going back to my roots again, daily review meetings. Not just a figure exercise, although sometimes if you were rushed, priorities got in the way, that it would be, but it's the highs and lows of your day. And I think that keeps everybody positive.
Yes. Well, my immediate answer to that is gunpowder and cream, because I think to have a positive atmosphere, you need to have some excitement and you need to have some reward, especially in a sales organization where it's difficult and there's rejection sometimes. And I think as well as positive atmospheres being contagious, negativity is contagious, isn't it? You know, and if you're contributing to how terrible something is, then that's a kind of death spiral. It always ends up in a disaster, really. So I think humour can help. I think reminding people of the goals that they have can help. But here's something controversial then, Louise, maintaining a positive atmosphere. So I think what lockdown's taught us is that humans need other humans to be the best that they can be. So Andy Murray has a tennis coach, and, you know, Lewis Hamilton has a whole entourage of people fawning over him, nutritionists and coaches. And I think humans need people to be the best that they can be. That's why we have a personal trainer. That's why Peloton people pay for people to shout at them. And it's our job, Louise, to beast people. We need to work them very hard. That's how you create a positive atmosphere. We work them very hard. We get the best out of them, a bit like a personal trainer, helping them be the best that they can be. And then we reward them well. So it's that, you know, it's the thing I said at the beginning, it's gunpowder and cream. Create excitement and reward people well.
I think what we do is we create a division, and we like to that everyone participates and is aware of that overall vision and shares this overall idea. And with and ahead, that is really the vision that everyone should reach his or her potential by returning to work after a career break, and also achieving those little steps. And because this is also a vision which also has this social impact in it, not only, you know, the financial dependencies. If you're going back, you are, you know, again, back into on your career track. Probably you're doing something more insightful or more meaningful after, you know, you reflected if you want to go back into your career again, and which way you want to go. So I think to share this vision, to be very transparent, communication is key. What is your next goal? What is the next steps? And having regular meetings, also, inviting everyone to also give their opinions. I think this is something which is the way we lead and manage the team, and try to also keep everyone having this vision in front of them and sharing it. And then I think this positive energy and also sharing feedbacks of clients, as well as little steps from our returnees, is something we share all the time. And then also do little milestones and celebrations of those milestones. I think that also helps to in the time where you have to run, you have to reach the next goals, and have to work hard. This helps. You see the results, you see the feedback. And we are trying to also ask our clients and candidates all the time about the feedbacks, and that keeps us also running. I would say that
keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it, really. What I definitely do, I'm really conscious of it, so I do my best. One thing I will say that I am good at, any business that I've run running, I share the good news with the team. Very, very, very important that they see for themselves everything they're doing. I don't hide the bad news as well, but I maybe push it down a little bit. And sometimes that's when it gets difficult, when it isn't such good news. It is easier to work. Obviously, it's easier to when things are going really well and everything's good. It's much easier, isn't it? It's when things are tough. So I suppose. So one thing is to be transparent. So that, and like I said earlier about getting strength from reflecting on what has gone well and that giving you confidence. So when things are a bit tough, then you have to really focus on the little things that maybe are going well and have gone well, and they may all contribute in time to something that will turn things around. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I do is I surround myself with people who are upbeat. So I've got a couple of individuals in my organisations who are just naturally, I don't know where they get it from. They are happy people. They are just something positive about them, and it's like just they never forget they never forget the birthdays, they never forget the celebrations. They always do the organising. They always do the rah-rahs and all that stuff, and they always send the gifts. And over that COVID period when life was really tough for everybody, they were the ones sorting out the Zooms of a Thursday evening after the clap and everything like that. And I know that can be hard for somebody to keep doing, but these particular individuals have got it, and they do it, and that's how I do it. I'm not that person, so I make sure that but you need those people in your organisation, don't you? That person who has this out, and it might be a couple of them, those people are great. So definitely that's what I do to try and create positivity. And the other thing is, like mistakes. If we make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes. I'm not on a witch hunt. Why did we make the mistake? Why did we do that wrong? What can we do better? Let's fix it. And I tell stories. I've made tons of mistakes in my time, so I can always share with people, on a sometimes it's appropriate and a big one, but if it's even on a one-to-one basis, I can say, I remember when I really messed up that, and I didn't do a great job on that, and you know, so they, you know, people realise that everyone's human, you know. I think.
Yeah. So I think first of all, I always surround myself by positive with positive people, not energy suckers, right? If you're building a business and you have energy suckers on your team and your management, it's just going to destroy the business, and you just don't want that negativity. So I think I'm quite a positive person. I'm definitely a glass half full type, and the people that I work with at close levels are sort of mirror that. You know, we're not like super optimists. There's a healthy dose of realism in there, but I think that's just really important. And then I think when you see that, as you said, the morale is down a little bit, people are a bit down in the pandemic, going through personal issues, it's just really important to reach out, listen to them. You know, you can't always just make them positive just because you something that you say or some encouragement you give. Sometimes it's just important to kind of hear them out. And then I think my fallback is often out of the office stuff as well. So whether it's sporting events, social events, can't do as many obviously with the pandemic, as you know, especially here in Asia. But we do try. So I work really, really hard on it.
I mean, I think a lot of it comes from the top. You know, I've had so many people sit in front of me and say that they're leaving their business because of the person that they work for. Maybe they're a bit of a mood hoover. Maybe they bring their problems into the office. You know, maybe they just have an approach that's sort of talking at, you know, that's not collaborative. And I think with me, I'm very mindful that if I'm having a bad day, that can't come into the office really. As I said at the beginning, I see the world through rose-coloured glasses because I am naturally optimistic, resilient, positive, and I think that's what sort of comes through in my team. I think it's about making sure that you're working to people's strengths, not necessarily. Obviously, you have to correct weaknesses, but I think you have to be accountable as to why that person perhaps has made a mistake. I'm not one to sort of sit there and go, oh my goodness, how awful. I think, gosh, what did I not do right that person has ended up making an error with a client or a candidate? What did we not train them? So I think when I come at it from sort of a shared sense of responsibility and collaboration, people know that we don't have a blame culture. We have a very trusting environment. We're all, you know, pretty positive. We find solutions. We support each other. And I think it's that collective, perhaps being part of that tribe, that makes people perhaps enjoy working with me, with the business. But yes, I think a lot of it stems from the approach of the leader to the team. And when in my case, the things that I've already mentioned were the collaboration, the trusting environment, being accountable, and not necessarily. But I think people know if they make a mistake in our business, they can come to me and say, because I'm not going to go mad. I never would, or don't do it with my children either. There is a reason why something has happened, and it's about finding the reason and correcting it rather than blaming that individual. Obviously, there's always exceptions to that situation. If you've told someone 100 times and they're still doing it wrong.
This one's actually really easy. It shouldn't be, but it is. It all comes from the leadership and the management. Being nice people, being proactive, being cheerful, being positive, that always helps. Years and years ago, I think when I was with Badenoch, so it was the early 80s, 82, 83, something like that. I went to visit an advertising agency, and I walked in, and everybody, they looked great, they sounded great, they were all friendly, they all looked like models. I think, oh, damn it, I hate this place. I came from a recruitment background, you know, we all wore grey suits and blue suits, and we worked in the city. It was very fuddy-duddy, and this was a completely different atmosphere. And I said to the guy who ran it, I went into his office, he had a parrot in his office. That's something else I remember about him. It was very strange. A live parrot sitting on a perch in his office. And I said, how do you make your people like that? And he said, like what? So I explained my reaction. He said, and he looked at me as I was mad. He said, well, I hire people like that. That's the people I recruit. That's why you're here, because I want more like that. And it is so obvious. I felt yay big, but I learned so much, because if you hire people that you think are not going to work out, one of my CEOs has a very, very strong gut feel about people. On paper, they can be fantastic, and they're a guaranteed 100% hire for anybody else, including the recruiters. But that CEO will say, no, this is not going to work. And every time, it's a she, half of my CEOs are she's, every time she's done that, it hasn't worked out. So now we've decided at the final interview, if it's a no on gut instinct, it's a no. I think being approachable, not being remote, being constructive and not being cynical, that's how you maintain a positive atmosphere. And the key thing, and I've said this to everyone I've ever worked with and everyone who's ever worked for me or with me, there's not one problem we face in our industry, or in any industry for that matter, that to do with people, there's not one problem that's been experienced in the history of time that's not down to communication or lack of it.
Yeah.
So think about the communication aspect. That's the key thing. If you are, great leaders are, by very definition, great communicators. They don't have to be outgoing. They don't have to be, they can be very thoughtful.
Yeah.
They can be very quiet, but they're great communicators. They communicate in their own way. You've heard the expression, he doesn't say much or she doesn't say much, but when she does, everyone listens. Well, that's critical. It's that communication aspect that's really, really important. So being honest, consistent, positive as a leader, and being a good communicator. So
yeah.
Okay, so I think the first thing for me with this is just to try and have fun. And I think that's just the most important thing. I think people that work with me will probably tell you that I can be a bit random at time, start doing a bit of random emceeing or, like singing or whatever. But ultimately we spend, it's the age-old thing people say, don't they? We spend a lot of time at work, and you've got to enjoy that scenario for me. So, an atmosphere of enjoyment and fun is great. Of course, there's a fine line, and sometimes people can have a bit too much fun and a bit too much chat, but ultimately you need to enjoy what you're doing when you're at work. So I'd say certainly from me, there's a sense of just trying to make sure everyone's enjoying it. And the other thing I'd just say is just, if I feel things aren't positive, almost like the previous question, I think it's important then to sort of step in. And if you feel someone's probably not quite right, just grab them and see if they're okay, see if there's anything going on that maybe that you don't know about in their personal life, or they've got something going on at home, they've got told you. So I think if someone feels that they're not quite themselves, it's just a case of saying, hey, is everything all right, basically?
I am a big believer in gratitude. I think gratitude is wildly underestimated. It's really linked to happiness. The more grateful you are, the chances are more positive and happy you are. And I'm a big believer in looking at what you can control and what you can influence. So for my positivity, I have quite a structured morning routine, and that works for me. I mean, I've got 2 children, so anything can happen. But what I try and do is make sure I control my morning routine. So by the time I get into work, I'm still positive. So that morning routine would be getting up at 5:45. I do the most important thing that I need to do for the day in that first hour before the children get up, and then where possible, I always like to walk to work and walk my dog to work. Then when I get into the office, I'm feeling like I've already achieved, so I'm feeling good, which is always positive. And then we have a team meeting. So we have a team communications meeting, and you can instantly tell from that if people are, a bit flat. So, and what we do then is we do rounds of gratitude. So I'll be saying, and we'll go round once, twice, 3 times, however many times people need to, until we perk up. And it'll be like, I'm happy and grateful for. And then they have to think of something that you can't physically see that they're happy and grateful for.
So it's not a materialistic thing then?
No, it's something that they are really, truly happy and grateful for, that they have to think about and, and feel it, which can change somebody's, it changes the brain waves in the way that you're thinking, and can take you out of a grump, because you're thinking about what you've got and what you can control and how lucky you are, rather than what you haven't got and that candidate that hasn't turned up for interview, for example. So gratitude, I think, is really important for us. If somebody's really struggling, because obviously in a team environment, if one person is struggling, they can bring the whole atmosphere down. So if somebody is doing that within the team environment, I'll take them away, have a chat with them, have a coffee, talk to them about what's wrong, listen to them, again, try and get them to look at alternative outlets. But I also use a technique where I'll give them a piece of paper and I'll ask them to write down a full page of good things that they've done or achieved that week.
Wow. So
they can really sit and think about, actually, yeah, I've controlled and I've done all of these great things. That's really good, because it's so easy to go on a downward spiral, especially in recruitment, where you're on an emotional roller coaster on the best of days. So for me, I'd say it's about gratitude. It's about being aware that there's only so much you can control, and actually there's very little you can control in the world that we work in, where we're dealing with clients and people as candidates. All we can control is how we think about something.